I loved him. Or maybe I just loved the idea of him until love became a cage. I just needed out. 1 second to breathe. I threw myself into the first car I saw. No looking back. You traded a parasite for predator, Harper. You're under my protection now. It comes with a price. It's a gilded cage. They said it wasn't love, that it was just an arrangement. But when his touch felt safer than my own freedom, she traded her ex's prison for a darker man's gilded cage. The rain was an overwhelming noise, a desperate cover for the sounds Harper Sullivan had just escaped. She wasn't running to anywhere. She was simply running from Grant Whitaker, his rage, his hands, and the terrible realization that her life was collapsing. She didn't look at the color or the make. She saw a back door slightly ajar on a massive black sedan parked on the curb and acted purely on instinct. She scrambled inside, collapsing onto the leather seat, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to become invisible. The car was silent, smelling of expensive cologne and power, a stark contrast to the grimy street. She was only vaguely aware of a large, silent man, Ryder, the driver, turning in his seat, his gaze unsettlingly calm. She barely registered his presence. The adrenaline was too intense, the need to disappear too urgent. She knew she was trespassing, but she was too terrified to care. "You should know this isn't a taxi, miss." A cold, even voice cut through the silence from the seat next to her. Harper flinched violently, finally noticing the other figure in the back. Cole Anderson. He was utterly composed, a stark contrast to her disheveled panic, adjusting a cufflink as if a distraught woman hadn't just hijacked his vehicle. His eyes, dark and piercing, examined her with the cool detachment of someone observing an interesting specimen. I'm sorry," Harper stammered, pulling away, trying to figure out how to escape this new, unexpected dilemma. Her heart was pounding, the fear of Grant only momentarily overshadowed by the intimidating presence of Cole. "I didn't see you. I just needed—" She trailed off, unable to articulate the depth of her terror. Cole simply raised an eyebrow, a clear signal that he was waiting for the full story. She knew instantly that vague answers wouldn't satisfy this man. The proposal of power. Cole's gaze dropped to the blossoming bruise on her arm, the physical evidence of Grant's final rage. "I know who you are, Harper Sullivan, and I know who you are running from." His words were a physical shock, and Harper's breath hitched in her throat. How could he know her? Ryder pulled the car smoothly away from the curb, driving into the city's heart, sealing her fate. "Grant Whitaker has been under my observation for months," Cole continued, revealing the first piece of his dark agenda. "You, however, were an unexpected but useful variable." He then outlined the deal, concise and ruthless. 6 months, full security, a life-changing sum of money, and a new career path. In exchange, she would play his perfect dedicated partner. She was being offered a golden ticket, but the strings attached felt like heavy chains. Accepting the gilded cage. Harper's mind raced, weighing the immediate threat of Grant against the calculated danger of this powerful man. Cole didn't need a response. He needed compliance. "You save my life, give me a future, and in return, you get leverage against Grant," she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. Cole smiled then, a brief, cold flash of triumph. "You get what I need to erase him, and you get everything you lost." The choice wasn't really a choice. Grant would find her, but Cole Anderson was offering a guarantee of absolute safety, a guarantee backed by money, power, and something much darker. "I accept," she said, the words heavy and final. "But I have conditions. I get to choose my new career, and when those 6 months are up, I walk free." Cole nodded, the deal sealed not with a handshake, but with a gaze of mutual understanding. She had just traded her ex's prison for a darker man's gilded cage. The first rule of the arrangement: As Ryder drove them toward the sanctuary that would become her gilded cage, Cole laid down the first essential rule, his voice turning absolute. From this moment forward, you are completely mine. Publicly, professionally, and every time the world is watching, you are devoted. You are untouchable, and you will not question my methods. Pause. His dark eyes demanding her full obedience. We start immediately. Cole concluded, pulling out a phone to issue sharp, quiet orders for security, staff, and immediate paperwork. Harper watched him work, efficient, seamless, terrifying. She was no longer running from Grant. She was running with Cole, straight into his world. She knew this man was her only way out, but the terrifying feeling was that she might never want to leave.
The black sedan, piloted by Ryder, finally pulled into an underground garage that felt less like parking and more like a fortress. Cole Anderson escorted Harper through a private elevator that ascended with unnerving speed, delivering them directly into a penthouse that defied description. It wasn't just luxury. It was absolute meticulous control, all glass and steel overlooking the city lights that glittered like distant, cold promises. It was terrifying and completely, undeniably safe. The first person Harper met inside was Senora Avery, the housekeeper, whose presence commanded respect. Senora Avery was older, with sharp, kind eyes and an aura of quiet efficiency, immediately showing Harper to the guest suite, a space the size of her old apartment, filled with silks and expensive art. "Mr. Anderson has arranged for immediate necessities, Miss Sullivan," Senora Avery said, her voice soft but professional. "Please rest. You'll be briefed tomorrow." Harper realized she was in a different world now, where every need was anticipated and no one questioned Cole Anderson's authority. Later that evening, Cole summoned her to his private study. He wasn't wearing a jacket, and the casual shift made him seem marginally less intimidating, though the sheer power emanating from him was still palpable. He didn't ask how she felt. He handed her a thick file. "This is your new identity," he explained, pointing to a section. "You are Harper Sullivan, designer. You specialize in interiors for high-end corporate clients. You met me on a project 2 months ago." Then he stood, moving toward her with a predatory grace that made her heart stutter. "We need to rehearse," he stated, his eyes locking onto hers. "When we are seen, we are affectionate. Convincing. I'll need to know you won't freeze up." Before she could respond, he leaned in, his large hand cupping her cheek. His thumb brushed her jawline, a careful, deliberate touch that sent a startling jolt of warmth through her. It was just a performance, but the electricity was undeniably real. He pulled back, his expression unreadable. "That should suffice for most situations," he said, his voice perfectly controlled again. "If anything further is necessary, we'll discuss it beforehand." Harper simply nodded, unable to trust her own voice. The contact was brief, yet it had left her skin tingling, and her composure was utterly shattered. This was a business transaction, a performance, yet the unexpected spark between them threatened to burn the entire contract to the ground. "There is one more thing we should address," Cole continued, regaining his seat. "Grant. He's been asking about you at your old workplace, among your acquaintances." Cole's expression hardened. He's getting desperate, angry. A chill went down Harper's spine. "How do you know that?" she whispered. Cole's answer was simple, terrifying, and final. "I have him watched, for your safety and to ensure he doesn't become a liability to us." The worst part was, she found the surveillance deeply reassuring. "Do you think he'll find me?" Harper asked, sinking back into the velvet couch. Cole shook his head, but his expression was serious. "No, but he's becoming volatile. We need to diffuse the situation." The casual efficiency with which he spoke of calming down a dangerous man was a chilling reminder of who he was. "How?" she pressed. "We'll be seen together publicly," Cole explained, picking up his glass. "We need to establish our relationship as something that predates your departure." He took a slow sip of his drink, his dark eyes fixed on her. When Grant inevitably sees this, he'll draw his own conclusions. His plan was terrifyingly simple. Redirect Grant's anger away from her safety and toward the perceived betrayal of her moving on with a wealthier, more powerful man. Cole's mouth curved into a chilling smile. Let him try. The quiet confidence in his voice was a potent, almost dizzying drug. She was dealing with a man who dealt in permanent solutions. "What will you do if he comes after you?" she asked, genuinely concerned despite herself. "Handle it," Cole replied simply. "But he won't. Men like Grant are cowards at heart. They only attack those they perceive as weaker." The certainty in his voice was instantly reassuring, even if it raised more questions about the full extent of Cole Anderson's shadowy connections. "I should warn you," he continued, placing his glass down. "Establishing our relationship publicly means you'll be photographed. That is unavoidable in my position." The implication was clear. Once she was seen with him, there was no going back to anonymity, no changing her mind and walking away. "I understand," Harper confirmed, meeting his gaze. She had made her choice, and her resolve hardened. "Good. Tomorrow we will have lunch at Bellini's. It's a popular spot for executives, a good place to be seen together for the first time." He looked down at her, a command in his posture. "You should rest. Tomorrow is the real test of our arrangement." She stood too, acutely aware of the proximity, of the memory of his hand on her cheek. She was committed, and the terrifying charisma of her new ally was something she couldn't ignore. The next day, Harper selected a deep blue dress, remembering Cole's admission that it was his favorite color. She spent far more time than usual on her appearance, aiming for the polished, sophisticated image worthy of being on Cole Anderson's arm. When she walked into the lobby, he was waiting, impeccably dressed. "Blue suits you," he noted, his voice flat, but the brief flare of appreciation in his eyes sent a wave of warmth through her.
"Thank you," Harper replied, suddenly hyper-aware of every movement. "I remember you mentioned it was your favorite color." A flash of surprise, gone in an instant, crossed his features. "You pay attention. Good." In the private elevator, Cole briefed her on what to expect. "Bellini's caters to a specific clientele. Anyone who knows me will notice us." Observed. "You ready for that?" She straightened her shoulders. "Yes." "Remember," he instructed just as the doors opened to the private garage, "as far as the world knows, we've been together for 2 months. You're a designer who caught my eye during a project for one of my companies, and we've been inseparable since." He finished, offering a smile that was clearly practiced, a gesture meant for the world. "I know the story, Cole." His car, a sedan just as luxurious as the one from that rainy night, waited, driven by Ryder, who gave a respectful nod as Cole opened Harper's door. The short drive to the restaurant was silent. Cole reviewed something on his phone while Harper watched the city glide by. As they arrived, Ryder stopped directly at the entrance, already recognized. "Follow my lead," Cole murmured as the door opened. "But be yourself. That's important." As her fingers met his, she felt that same inexplicable shock of connection. His hand moved to the small of her back as they approached the entrance, a possessive but not controlling gesture. The maitre d' practically bowed upon seeing Cole. "Mr. Anderson, always a pleasure. Your usual table is ready." As they walked through the restaurant, Harper became acutely conscious of the attention they drew. Conversations paused, eyes followed their progress, and subtle nods of recognition were directed at Cole. He returned them with minimal acknowledgement, a slight tilt of his head, a brief meeting of gazes that conveyed power and hierarchical understanding. Their table was perfectly positioned, private enough for conversation, yet visible to the right people. Cole pulled out her chair, his hand brushing her shoulder as she sat. Even that fleeting contact felt charged with meaning. "Relax," he murmured, sitting down. "You look like you're heading to an execution instead of having lunch with your lover." The word lover sent heat rushing to her cheeks. "Sorry," she managed. "I'm not used to being the center of attention." "You're not," he corrected. "I am. You are simply the new variable people are curious about." "I'll have the usual," Cole told the waiter without looking at the menu, then looked at Harper expectantly. "I would like to see the menu, please," she said, refusing to fall into line despite their agreement.
Cole's lips twitched, almost a smile. After the waiter left, he nodded. "Good," he said. "Assert yourself. That's what attracted me to you in the first place." She raised an eyebrow. "A man in my position is surrounded by people who say yes, who bow to my will without question. Someone who holds their ground is refreshing. You need to always remember that part of the arrangement." There was something genuine in Cole's voice that caught Harper by surprise, a sincerity she hadn't anticipated. Before she could process the thought, his attention shifted to something over her shoulder. "Mason," he said, rising slightly as a gray-haired man approached their table. "Didn't expect to see you here." The man, Mason Trump, looked at Harper with open curiosity. "Meeting with the Westridge board, Cole. You remember that acquisition we discussed?" "Of course." Cole's hand found Harper's on the table, his thumb lightly stroking her knuckles in a casual but deliberately intimate gesture. "Mason, this is Harper Sullivan. Harper, Mason Trump, a longtime friend and occasional business partner." Harper offered her free hand, which Mason accepted with traditional courtesy. "A pleasure, Miss Sullivan. I don't think Cole has mentioned you before." "We were keeping things quiet," Cole replied smoothly. "You know how much I value my privacy." Mason's eyebrows raised slightly. "Indeed. Well, I won't interrupt your lunch. Perhaps we could all have dinner sometime." "I'd like that," Harper said before Cole could respond, earning a tight squeeze of approval from his hand. After Mason left, the introductions continued. Throughout the lunch, several colleagues stopped by our table. Each interaction was a carefully choreographed dance where Harper played the part of the charming new partner, while Cole maintained his usual controlled facade, only softening the edges just enough to suggest genuine affection. It was exhausting and exhilarating all at once. By the time they finished dessert, which Cole insisted on sharing in a display clearly for the benefit of onlookers, Harper felt as though she had run an emotional marathon. "You did well," he said as they waited for the car. "Better than I expected." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," she replied dryly. His hand found the small of her back again as Ryder pulled up. "I mean it. You were natural, charming. People believed us." "Isn't that what you're paying me for?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Cole's expression darkened slightly as he helped her into the car. Once inside, with the privacy divider raised, he turned to her. "Is that how you see this? Strictly transactional?" "It is, isn't it?" she challenged, suddenly needing clarity amidst the confusing blend of real and fake. "You made the terms very clear. 6 months, then we part ways." Cole studied her for a long moment. "The terms remain, but that doesn't mean what happens between us sometimes has to be cold or impersonal." Her heart stuttered in her chest. "What exactly are you saying, Cole?" Before he could answer, his phone rang, and the transformation was immediate. The transformation was immediate, sharp. Cole's expression hardened, his body tensing as he checked the caller ID. "I need to take this," he said, his voice suddenly serious. The warmth from moments before completely vanished. "Ryder, take us to the Kingsley Tower immediately." The call itself was brief, conducted in tones so low Harper couldn't catch the substance. But the effect on Cole was unmistakable. Any burgeoning intimacy between them disappeared, replaced by the controlled, cold man she'd first met. "Change of plans," he said, after ending the call. "I have business to handle. Ryder will take you back to the apartment." "Is everything all right?" Harper risked asking. "It's being handled," he replied, his voice leaving no room for further questions. When they reached a sleek skyscraper downtown, Cole turned to her. "Wait here," he instructed Ryder, then spoke to Harper more softly. "We'll continue our conversation later." As she watched him stride into the building, his posture rigid with controlled power, she was reminded of the reality behind their agreement. Whatever was happening between them, that strange, unexpected attraction, was secondary to who Cole Anderson truly was, a man with secrets, immense power, and a darkness she had only glimpsed. Back at the apartment, hours passed with no word from Cole. Senora Avery assured her this was normal. He often worked late. Harper tried to distract herself in the design room, but her mind kept cycling back to their interrupted conversation in the car and the question that hung between them. What exactly was he saying? It was well past midnight when she heard the front door. Unable to sleep, she was curled up in the library with one of Cole's books. She rose as he appeared in the doorway. His tie was loosened, a weariness in his posture she hadn't seen before. "You're still up," he observed, his voice rough with exhaustion. "I was worried," she admitted. "You left so suddenly." A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. "It was business, nothing for you to worry about." "Was it about Grant?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Cole went utterly still. "Why would you ask that?" "Because everything changed after Mason Trump mentioned meeting you. Because you have Grant watched. Because—" "Because what, Harper?" His voice had taken on a dangerous edge. "Because there's something you aren't telling me," she insisted, holding her ground despite the sudden tension. "Something about why you really offered me this arrangement." For a long moment he said nothing, just studied her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Then, with a sigh that seemed to come from deep within him, he walked to the corner bar and poured himself a drink. "Grant Whitaker works for Mason Trump. Or rather, he's been embezzling money from him. It's been going on for over a year," he elaborated, the revelation hitting Harper like a physical blow. "He was stealing nearly $2 million from my oldest associate." Harper's mind raced to process the information. "So, when I showed up in your car that night, it wasn't a coincidence." Cole confirmed the horrifying truth with a single nod. "I knew who you were the moment you spoke your name. We were monitoring Grant. The truth was out, but the worst kind of manipulation was yet to be revealed." "I knew about his tendencies with you," Cole admitted, his jaw tightening as he recalled the surveillance reports. "What I didn't expect was that you would choose that particular night to leave him." Harper stood there, the full weight of his scheme crashing down on her. "You were using me," she stated, the pain surprising her with its intensity. "This entire arrangement, it was never about helping me or needing a companion. It was about getting to Grant." Cole placed his glass down and slowly walked toward her, closing the dangerous distance between them. "It started that way," he conceded, his eyes holding hers. "But it changed, Harper. It changed the moment I saw those bruises on your arms. The moment I heard you talk about what he had done to you." "Why should I believe you?" she challenged, even though a desperate part of her wanted to cling to his words. "Because I could have handled Grant without you," he said simply. "I could have destroyed him financially, legally, and personally, without ever involving you. But when you showed up in my car that night, scared, hurt, but still fighting, I saw an opportunity to give you something while taking what I needed from him." Cole's logic was chillingly detached, yet undeniably powerful. "What exactly are you taking from him?" she whispered. Cole's eyes darkened, his face hardening into a mask of grim satisfaction. "His freedom. When the evidence of his embezzlement is handed over to the authorities tomorrow. His pride when he sees you with me. His sense of power when he realizes he never had any to begin with." The cold certainty in his voice should have terrified her, but she felt a strange sense of vindication. "Is that why you had Senora Avery elect my things from the apartment? You were gathering evidence against him." Cole nodded once. "Among other things." "Why tell me now, then? Why not keep the illusion?" He stepped closer, near enough that she could see the fatigue lines around his eyes, near enough to smell the familiar cologne mixed with the scent of his skin. "Our agreement still stands," he stated, his voice low. "But I'm hoping you'll reconsider when that time comes."
Harper should have been angry. She should have felt betrayed by the manipulation. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something she recognized. The same loneliness she had carried for years, the same protective walls built around a carefully guarded heart. "I don't know what this is between us," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But I want to find out honestly this time. No more secrets." Cole's thumb stroked her cheek, a soft counterpoint to the powerful moment. "No more secrets," he agreed. "Starting tomorrow, after Grant is handled. A clean slate." "A clean slate," she echoed, leaning into his touch. When his lips finally found hers, there was nothing practiced or performative about it. It was a question, an answer, a promise, all at once. It wasn't the end of their arrangement. It was the beginning of something else entirely. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars caught in a dark net. Inside, in the circle of Cole's arms, Harper found something she had stopped believing in. It wasn't just safety, it was possibility. The following morning, the atmosphere in the penthouse was different. The air was charged not with nervous uncertainty, but with a quiet, intense anticipation. Signora Avery moved with her usual grace, but Harper noticed a subtle tension, a heightened awareness that signaled the day's events. Cole appeared, immaculate as always, but with a barely perceptible tightness around his eyes, the remnants of a sleepless night. Their eyes met across the vast dining table, and the look they shared was intimate, a silent acknowledgement of the shift that had occurred between them. "The initial reports are out," Cole confirmed, tapping his phone lightly. "Grant Whitaker is officially detained, facing serious charges of embezzlement and possession. The firm is cooperating fully." There was no triumph in his voice, just the clinical delivery of a successful execution. Harper felt a dizzying mix of relief and gravity. Her past was truly gone, erased by the very hands that now offered her comfort. She was finally safe, but the cost of that safety felt immensely complex. Cole looked up from his breakfast, his gaze locking onto hers. "Today the media will put two and two together. Grant's downfall, your sudden disappearance, and the fact that you're now dating me." He paused, his expression serious. "Expect the scrutiny to be intense. They will try to find the connection. They will try to find the dirt." Harper held her spine straight. "I'm ready for it. What's the plan?" She was finally free of her ex, but the spotlight Cole shone on her promised a different kind of danger. "The plan is to lean into the narrative," Cole said, standing to tower over the table. "The media loves a scandalous romance and a quick downfall. They will frame you as the victim who found a powerful protector, a story of redemption. Your job is to embody that." He walked to the window, the city his backdrop. "We have a gala tonight. It's the perfect stage for the debut of the new Harper Sullivan." Harper felt a surge of nervous excitement. This wasn't just about escaping Grant. It was about taking the stage Cole had built for her. "What about the questions? They'll ask about Grant, about the timing." Cole finally turned back, a hint of something that might have been admiration in his eyes. "You say nothing about him. You focus on our intense whirlwind romance that started 2 months ago. You look radiant, untouched by the past, and utterly devoted to me." The afternoon was a frantic blur of preparation. Stylists and makeup artists descended upon the suite, working under the watchful eye of Signora Avery, transforming Harper into the image of Cole's sophisticated partner. As she watched her reflection, the woman looking back was polished, powerful, and almost unrecognizable. This wasn't the designer. This was the gilded prisoner, and she suddenly felt the heavy weight of the performance she had to deliver. Hours later, as they waited for the elevator, Cole gave her one final instruction. "Tonight, you are more than a designer. You are an accessory, a symbol of my focus. But remember what's underneath it all, the truth we shared." He paused, his voice dropping to a seductive register that was meant only for her. "I need that realness, Harper. The spark we share is what sells the lie." Stepping onto the red carpet felt like walking into a brilliant, chaotic storm. Hundreds of camera flashes erupted, and a cacophony of voices shouted their names. Cole's hand was firmly placed on the small of his back, a physical anchor amidst the frenzy, his presence an impenetrable shield. He fielded the few direct questions with practiced ease, his answers short, confident, and dismissive of anything related to Grant Whitaker's arrest. As they entered the ballroom, Harper caught a glimpse of a headline on a nearby phone screen. "Mafia CEO steals abuser's girl. Retaliation or romance?" The words confirmed the raw, sensational narrative they were feeding the world. She met Cole's eyes, and he gave the slightest, almost imperceptible nod. She was his weapon, his trophy and his secret. And the thrilling part was, she was starting to enjoy the terrifying power that came with it. She had stepped into the light, and now there was no escaping the heat of the spotlight.
Inside the gala, the atmosphere was less chaotic, but the scrutiny was more focused. Every conversation Harper had, every sip of champagne she took, was analyzed. She kept the smile fixed, allowing Cole to lead the introductions, her hand never leaving the comforting, possessive weight of his arm. She felt a profound sense of duality. She was pretending to be in love with him, yet the genuine, unsettling heat that flared between them whenever their eyes met made the performance feel terrifyingly thin. Halfway through the evening, a reporter managed to corner her, slipping past Cole's perimeter with practiced ease. "Miss Sullivan," the man started, his voice deceptively smooth, "can you comment on the rumors that your relationship with Mr. Anderson only started after your ex-fiancé's legal troubles? Was this a calculated maneuver for protection?" The question was a low blow, designed to destabilize her. Harper felt her perfectly crafted composure begin to crumble, the old fear momentarily paralyzing her. Before she could form a reply, Cole moved. It wasn't a sudden, rough pull, but a smooth, deliberate repositioning of his body, putting his back to the reporter. He then lowered his head to her ear, his lips grazing her skin. "Look at me," he murmured, his voice a commanding rumble that only she could hear. "Answer with your eyes. Show them they don't matter." The intimacy of the moment was so powerful, it instantly drowned out the noise of the room. Harper looked up at him, her smile returning, but this time it was genuine, a mix of defiance and desperate attraction. Cole's dark eyes held hers captive for a moment longer than necessary before he turned back to the room. "We prefer to celebrate our good fortune, not discuss the misfortunes of others," he stated, his voice cutting and final, dismissing the reporter with a glance. The incident left Harper breathless, realizing how completely she now relied on his dominance. Later, while they were briefly alone near the balcony, Harper saw Cole's eyes narrow across the room, watching a man who seemed to be staring at her too long. "Who is that?" she asked, following his gaze. "No one important," Cole dismissed, but his jaw was tight. He then moved closer, pulling her flush against his side, his action overtly possessive. "Remember your role, Harper. Be engaging, but only with me. Every other man in this room is a rival." She realized with a frightening clarity that the performance was starting to blur with his real territorial nature. The night ended with a barrage of flash photography as they made their dramatic exit. They had survived their public debut, cementing the narrative of their whirlwind romance. As they rode home, the silence in the car was heavy with unspoken emotion. Cole finally broke it, his voice low. "You handled the reporter perfectly." Harper just stared out the window, watching the city lights blur. "But you didn't answer my question in the car the other day. Now that Grant is neutralized, what happens to the terms of the arrangement? I needed to know if I was his partner in crime or his prisoner of passion." Cole shifted in the back seat, the movement deliberate and commanding, forcing Harper to face him in the dark privacy of the car. "The terms haven't changed, Harper. 6 months, then you walk away with the promised financial security and a clean professional start." He paused, his gaze intense. "But the nature of our relationship has changed. I told you that. We aren't simply performing a lie anymore. There is a connection, and pretending it doesn't exist would be inefficient and frankly foolish." "Inefficient?" she challenged, a frustrated laugh escaping her. "You use that word for mergers and acquisitions, Cole, not for what happened last night." She gestured vaguely between them. "I need to know if this genuine connection is just another one of your strategies, another way to ensure my loyalty until the 6 months are up." The stakes were too high for her to allow herself to be emotionally manipulated again, even if the thought of his rejection hurt. Cole's jaw clenched, a clear sign that her words had struck a nerve. "My strategies ensure survival, Harper, for both of us. But what I feel for you isn't strategy. It's a desire for possession.
Yes, I'm territorial, but it's also a deep respect for your resilience. I've never had to fight for a woman, and I've never wanted one who challenges me at every turn. He reached out, his knuckle brushing her jawline again. What I'm saying is this. Publicly, we maintain the contract. Privately, we explore this. There are no new terms, just honesty. No more pretending our touch is merely part of the act. The intensity of his honesty was breathtaking, yet terrifying. She realized he was offering her the chance to be his true partner, not just his prop. "And if I say no to exploring this private agreement," she asked, testing the limits of his control, "if I insist we keep this strictly business as per the original contract," Cole smiled slowly, a dangerous, confident expression that promised trouble. "Then I will respect your wishes, but you'll find that my commitment to the public role is absolute, and I'm a very persuasive man when I want something." Harper didn't need any more convincing. She leaned forward, closing the final space between them. "No more secrets, Cole," she repeated, her voice a promise. "But know this, I may be in your gilded cage, but my heart is still my own. If you try to control that, the contract is meaningless." Their lips met, a silent and fierce affirmation of the complicated new path they were taking, a path where passion was as risky as the enemies he kept.
The morning after the gala felt heavy with a sense of inevitability, the quiet preceding a storm. Harper was in the design studio Cole had commissioned for her in the penthouse, trying to focus on sketches, but her mind was consumed by the look on Cole's face during their kiss. It was an expression of possession, yes, but also of vulnerability, a dangerous mix. She understood the golden cage now. It wasn't a physical prison, but a psychological one, woven from luxury and intense attraction. Her attempt at work was interrupted by Logan, Cole's security head, not Senora Avery, which immediately put her on alert. Logan, usually reserved, had a grim set to his jaw. "Miss Sullivan, Mr. Anderson needs you to stay inside today. A precaution." "What's wrong?" she asked, her heart speeding up. "Nothing is wrong," Logan replied, though his evasion spoke volumes. "Just heightened activity. It's routine after a high-profile public event like last night." Cole arrived minutes later, his face taut, having clearly skipped his morning routine. "It wasn't routine," he stated, cutting through Logan's careful euphemisms. "Grant has allies. Someone tried to access information about our travel and security details late last night." He walked straight to the panoramic window, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "Grant may be locked up, but his connections at Meridian Financial are trying to cover their tracks." "Grant still has pull even from jail?" Harper asked, a wave of fear washing over the initial relief of his arrest. She realized the danger hadn't been eliminated, it had just mutated. His former associates, perhaps people who were benefiting from the embezzlement, they are nervous, Cole explained. They view you as the weak link, the way to get to me, to discredit the entire investigation. Cole turned back, his gaze intensely focused on her. "This is the reality of the game now, Harper," he said, his voice hard. "You are protected, but you are also bait. You need to be aware of every interaction, every detail, every unknown face." He paused, stepping closer, his presence commanding the small space. "From now on, the security is absolute. You don't leave this apartment without me or Logan, and you follow every directive without question. Your freedom is still the goal, but your safety is non-negotiable." The revelation of the security breach created an immediate shift in Cole's demeanor. He was completely focused, his energy crackling with cold efficiency. He ordered the penthouse sealed, transforming their luxurious home into a command center. "The attempt to access my travel log suggests they need to know my movements," Cole explained, pacing the living room. "They're targeting me, but you are the easiest point of entry." The frank admission of her role as bait should have terrified her, but her fear was now overshadowed by a strange, almost thrilling resolve. "I need to know what to look for, Cole," Harper stated, stepping forward. "I won't be a passive target." Her willingness to participate, rather than crumble, drew a flicker of respect in his eyes. He stopped pacing, pulling up complex security feeds in data streams on the massive digital wall. "I need you to look at the personnel files for Meridian Financial," he instructed. Grant had to have help on the inside, someone who benefited from the embezzlement and is now desperate to see the case fall apart. They spent the next few hours working shoulder to shoulder at the immense desk. The excruciating proximity was unbearable. Every time Cole leaned over her shoulder to point out a data anomaly, she could feel the heat radiating off his body, the faint, clean scent of his cologne. The tension between solving the security crisis and managing their overwhelming attraction was almost unbearable. They were fighting a war on an external front, while their internal battle raged just beneath the surface. "This is the man who manages Mason Trump's portfolio," Cole muttered, zooming in on a clean-cut man's profile. "He suddenly bought a house in cash last month, right after Grant escalated his thefts." Harper's fingers hovered over the screen. She pointed out, "Look at the dates of the transactions," her voice low. The cash transactions matched the days Grant was working late, according to his old schedule. Cole looked at her, his eyes blazing with a mixture of professional respect and sheer masculine appreciation. "You don't miss a thing, Harper." His approval was potent, an unexpected reward. The connection deepened not in a moment of planned romance, but in shared purpose and danger. He reached out, covering her hand on the mouse, and their eyes locked. The outside threat was pulling them together, making the lie they started a crucial, undeniable truth. Cole's grip on her hand tightened momentarily, a silent acknowledgement of her intelligence and their shared success. He pulled his hand away, the air immediately cooling, and returned to his calculated demeanor. "That's exactly what I needed, a confirmation of the internal threat." He straightened, moving back into CEO mode. "We need to use this to draw him out before he tries anything else." Harper looked at the screen, the face of Grant's accomplice a grim reminder that the danger was far from over. "How do we draw him out?" Harper asked, her voice steady. She felt a surprising calm, fueled by the focus of the task. Cole smiled, a cold, deliberate expression that didn't reach his eyes. "We give him exactly what he thinks he wants, a clean line to the confidential documents proving Grant's guilt." He picked up his secure phone and made a quick, concise call, directing his legal team to leak a single critical file in a way that only Grant's associate would find. "He won't just take the bait," Cole predicted, running a hand through his dark hair. "He'll have to verify the information. That will require him to physically move and expose himself." He looked at Harper, the strategist and the lover in him warring for dominance. "This is dangerous, Harper. Once we initiate the trap, you have to stay close to me. Absolute proximity." "I understand," she replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I'm not the terrified woman who crawled into your car anymore, Cole." That statement seemed to please him more than any compliment. He nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because for this to work, we need to appear even more publicly entangled than we did last night. We need to look distracted by each other, completely oblivious to his move. We will have dinner at the most visible spot in the city tonight. You will not leave my side. Logan will be in position, but our security will appear minimal to lure him in." The plan was reckless, a high-stakes gamble using their new, intense connection as a distraction. The threat was real, but Cole was determined to use their burgeoning passion as the very core of his defense. The restaurant Cole chose, perched atop the city's highest tower, was a perfect stage for their dangerous performance. It was a place where privacy was expensive and observation was constant. Harper wore a dress that shimmered under the chandeliers, a dazzling contrast to the cold calculation currently running through her mind. Cole, in a custom-tailored suit, looked like a king surveying his domain and his trap. They took their seats at a prime table, the air around them humming with the low buzz of wealthy conversations and the subtle tension of Cole's security measures. "Remember," he murmured, his voice dangerously close, as he leaned in, "we are completely absorbed in each other. No one else matters." He gave her a smile that was all charm and deceit, a smile meant to be captured by every camera phone in the vicinity. The act was flawless. Cole kept his hand on her arm, his thumb tracing patterns on her skin. He leaned in to share secrets she knew weren't real, laughing softly at jokes that were invented on the fly. Yet amidst the deception, the constant, intimate contact fanned the undeniable flame between them. Each stage touch was a test of willpower, forcing them to confront the reality of their attraction in the most public way possible. Halfway through the main course, Cole's eyes flickered, barely noticeable, toward the entrance. He didn't react, but Harper felt his muscles tense beneath his suit jacket. "He's here," Cole mouthed, his eyes boring into hers. "Act distracted, kiss me." The order was sharp, absolute. Harper didn't hesitate. She reached up, cupped his jaw, and pulled him in for a kiss that was meant to be purely an act of diversion. The kiss was desperate, public, and utterly real. It was a chaotic mix of adrenaline and pent-up passion. When they finally broke apart, both were slightly breathless, their eyes shining. Just then, Harper saw him, a nervous-looking man, Grant's accomplice, frantically speaking into his phone near a service entrance, his eyes darting toward their table and the commotion the kiss had caused. He had taken the bait. The performance was over, and the confrontation was about to begin.
The breathless moment after the kiss was instantly broken by the shift in Cole's demeanor. His eyes were no longer focused on Harper. They were focused on the threat. His hand moved from her jaw to the back of her head, a silent command for her to stay still. Across the room, Grant's accomplice, still speaking heatedly into his phone, suddenly found his escape route blocked. Logan, moving with chilling speed, appeared as if from nowhere, flanked by two other security men. The situation was handled with ruthless efficiency. Logan didn't resort to violence. He simply approached the man, flashed something that looked official, and with a quiet, authoritative command, escorted him quickly out a side door. The commotion was subtle, muffled by the sheer size of the room and the practiced discretion of the staff. Most patrons were too absorbed in their own conversations or too intimidated by Cole to truly notice. Cole finally let out the breath he'd been holding, releasing Harper from his gaze, though his hand remained possessively on her shoulder. "It's done," he murmured, his voice now returning to its normal low, controlled rhythm. "He won't be a problem anymore. They'll hand him over to the authorities for obstruction and questioning." Harper realized she hadn't flinched, hadn't panicked. She had watched the takedown of a dangerous man with a chilling sense of complicity. "You used me as bait," she stated, her voice steady, "and you knew that kiss would cause enough chaos to distract everyone." Cole turned fully toward her, a hint of genuine approval in his dark eyes. "You were the necessary variable," he confirmed, his hand sliding down to clasp hers tightly under the table. "You draw attention, Harper, and tonight you drew the right kind of attention." The rest of the evening was a blur of renewed performance, but this time the intensity was internal. Harper felt an overwhelming sense of commitment to Cole's world. She had survived the X, survived the initial contract, and now she had participated actively in taking down a new threat. She wasn't just in his gilded cage anymore. She was helping him build it, and the shared danger was a powerful aphrodisiac. The silence in the car on the way back to the penthouse was heavier than ever before, but this time it was a silence of shared knowledge, not strained unfamiliarity. Harper felt a strange sense of elation, a rush of adrenaline mixed with an unsettling realization of how easily she had adapted to Cole's world of high-stakes manipulation. Cole sat beside her, his expression relaxed for the first time all evening, the successful operation clearly settling his nerves. "You handled yourself well tonight, Harper," he said finally, his voice low and intimate. "Most people panic when the stakes get that high." She turned to face him fully. "I didn't panic because you were there, and because I knew I was right about the accomplice." His eyes, normally cold and assessing, softened slightly. "You trusted me, even though you know exactly what I am capable of. That means something." "It means I'm starting to understand your rules, Cole," she corrected, unwilling to give him easy emotional ground. "And one of your rules is that you protect what's yours absolutely." She let the word yours hang in the air, watching his reaction. A slow, deeply possessive smile spread across his face, a genuine expression of satisfaction that sent a thrill through her. "Exactly, and you should know that I am very committed to my rules." When they reached the penthouse, the atmosphere was quiet.
Senora Avery having retired hours ago. Cole poured them both a drink, leading her not to the study, but to the living room, a more personal space. He handed her a glass of wine, their fingers brushing. To success, he murmured, his gaze holding hers, and to trust. The toast was an acknowledgement of their new, dangerous bond forged in deceit and danger. Harper took a sip, the wine warming her. "I helped you catch him, Cole. What does that make me now?" she asked, needing to define her place beyond the simple contract. Cole set his glass down, pulling her gently toward him until she stood between his knees. "It makes you my partner, Harper, in business and in this." He didn't wait for an answer. He kissed her then, a deep, consuming kiss that swept away the remnants of the night's deception, leaving only the complex, undeniable truth of their connection. She knew she was willingly walking deeper into the labyrinth, and she had no desire to find the exit.